All right, so there's a lot that went into today's Magic story. I want to kind of go over different thoughts. First off, it ended with this weird, like, mysterious shadow group that comes from the edges watching the universe as it finally ends, which is spooky. There's also a lot of content about, like, just planeswalkers being saved or their personalities coming out. I do think they really, really well set up the chance that the planeswalkers that Elesh Norn has completed, because they still have their Spark and Soul, are going to be able to do some type of rebellion against her. Especially because it is already shown with Shieldred that being a Phyrexian does not mean Elesh Norn is who you follow 100% of the time. There is more individuality in these characters than it is really led on from Elesh Norn's perspective. And if that's true, and these characters have a spark, and they're reacting to things like Tamio being unwilling to want to actually complete her family, or just the different other moments we get from each of the different walkers, seems like it's setting up a moment where these characters are maybe the downfall of Elesh Norn, right? Like, maybe the way that you finally defeat her is these characters that she completed turn on her, especially Jace, who I have talked about before, is a nuclear bomb when he wants, if he could ever want to be. Like, he has the ability to wreck things in a way that's terrifying. And it's been proven that Elesh Norn is mentally fuck-upable. Ashiok messed with her. If Ashiok can mess with Elesh Norn, Jace probably can. Also, the fact that we're probably going to be getting Ren and the World Tree. Like, they set up that Ren is going to the World Tree to take it over so that she can use its powers to try and combat in a big interplanar tree battle against the World Breaker. Also, at a small level, it was really cute getting to see Chandra just getting to try and be a mentor of another fire mage, while also seeing kind of a metaphor for her relationship with Nissa within that fire mage who's inside of a tree. I mean, you know, that's all obvious things. Plus, it lets her kind of look over her two mentor characters who have both been killed. We have a Johnny who's been completed, and Jaya who was murdered by a Johnny who was completed. The subtlety of also Liliana being really sad about Jace dying is, like, something that I think is also it's not to be ignored. Her character development has always actually been kind of in love with Jace in a way that I think neither her nor Jace would ever admit. And obviously Jace is with Vraska and has been for a while, but I think that is a motivating feature that is going to be very interesting to see if that plays out in any way. Also, the subtle hints of just, like, the weakness of Phyrexia set up in this story. The fact that the angels that Elesh Norn has made, who are meant to be facsimiles to, you know, angels on most other planes or in existences, singing weekly, was such a good, so good. They also set up very, very well that Elsbeth is another main tool in being able to defeat them. The fact that New Capenna has the secret within Halo, and it's pretty set up that Elesh Norn is terrified from Elsbeth because Elsbeth is likely some tool in being able to defeat her. Though this does feel like a lot of things to happen all in one set. It's possibly why we're getting the story before seeing previews, because these previews are going to just spoil a lot of these. If it's all happening in this one set, there's a lot of story spoilers that could just happen. I'm a little sad we're not doing what we did with War of the Spark, or at least I have not heard about that we're doing it, where they had every single card in the entire set be previewed in order of when it is shown in the story, in chronological order, and it was like one of the coolest preview seasons we've ever gotten, and it doesn't feel like we're doing it again. I do, like, in the back of my head, feel just the small hints that they could be mirrored impuring us, or possibly time skipping us. It's possible we're getting time skipped. But it's weird that we're going from, like, March of the Machine, the ending to the Phyrexian storyline, which does feel a little bit like we are getting hints that this is going to be a big deal, and then now we're in it. Like, against Bolas, it was a multi-step process. Against the Eldrazi, it was a multi-fight against them process. And against the Phyrexians, it's felt not as much that. It feels like we're missing, like, a year worth of it. And so what if we're not going to Eldraine and Ixalan at the end of this year? What if those are just placeholders? Or we are, but it's going to be like the War of Phyrexia is still happening on both of those sets? I don't think that's actually going to happen, though. I think two things are possible. I think one, clean defeat which is going to be a little lame, but whatever. That's why Aftermath exists. We're going to defeat the Phyrexians this one, and then the ramification of what that means in the next one, and then the world is back to normal. Maybe, hopefully, a time skip where we skip a few years ahead so that as we're visiting these new planes, part of the mystery of what they're setting up and showing is like what happened since Phyrexia. Where are the characters we love? What happened to them? Especially if they get rid of Planeswalkers, which is one of the definitely big theories I still have about what's happening. Though, if they are getting rid of Planeswalkers and they just kind of like made Oathbreaker a real format, it makes me sad for Oathbreaker because, like, was it just a ploy to make it feel like Planeswalkers are staying around forever and this is like a way to trick everyone? Like, it's weird that they would codify the format, the main casual format about having Planeswalkers as your commander weeks before they got rid of Planeswalkers forever. So I actually am now pretty solid with that announcement on the, like, probably Planeswalkers are here to stay, just maybe in a reduced fit manner. But the other possible option, which I think is maybe a possibility, is they are defeated-ish. And I said this before, I think there's a possibility that part of the story here is that maybe Elishnorn is defeated and the Phyrexian oil loses its corruptive potency. Like, the original Phyrexians were not the infection type of Phyrexians. That is a modern Phyrexia thing, not the original one. The original one, you only completed people that deserved it. Now they're like, if you look at us, you get completed. Join the club. And if they're able to return to that old status through a multitude of ways, killing the Praetors, Yawgmoth being reborn, the world tree kind of combining with Realmbreaker. I mean, I've talked about how I think, like, the possibility is that we're entering into a world where the network allows people to travel between planes, so Planeswalkers are the only carryover characters. And I think that, regardless of what happens to Planeswalker, is for sure happening. But then these sets are a little bit about showing, and even here I want to time skip, the status quo of the war. Yes, Phyrexia is no longer infecting people the way it was, and is no longer a thing that's consuming planes in such a terrible way, but it's still encroaching on people's worlds. It's still invading planes. It's still trying to fight things. The one thing I would say, and it doesn't make sense because of Eldraine, but, like, for sure it's possible that some of these are images into, like, the planes that have been able to save themselves from Phyrexia. This acts as a grand reset. Phyrexia is able to destroy or take over a multitude of planes that we love, but some of them are able to maybe fight them back. Maybe it's possible that through Urabrask's help, the Kenriths and their sacrifice are able to, like, lock Eldraine away from the Phyrexians, but now there's, like, the red faction that's now just a part of the plane, and when we go back there, it's seeing kind of the status quo of what that looks like. And then Ixalan is maybe just a plane that never got connected to the other planes and is now one of the few planes that have been able to be protected and saved as they do this bigger reset, kind of starting the realm of all the different planes over in a big reboot. This then, over a multi-year period, allows Wizards to revisit new planes that weren't affected by Phyrexia, as well as old planes that we don't know the outcome of where they're at. Are they still around? Are they not? And so it's a bigger reveal that, like, oh, Alara survived. Amonkhet is still out there. We've gone to Kaladesh, but Phyrexia has actually gotten a hold here and has taken over, allowing the story to be a multi-step story versus just ending within a single year. And of course, they could just time travel back in time. Teferi has the ability, and then using some combination of Elsbeth and Teferi and Jace maybe, like, having a mind pod in his back who's been able to come back from being evil. All of them are able to, like, undo all of this, and it goes back to, like, if Phyrexia never happened. Then you do, what's cool about that is hopefully there's ramifications to it, right? Hopefully they go so far back in time that we are, like, the modern day era is different. Maybe the Eldrazi were never defeated. Maybe Bolas was never defeated. Maybe Lim-Dûl has taken over everything and defeated them in a, like, Ultron in the MCU what if storylines when he killed Thanos with, like, a single laser blast. You've solved this one problem, but now you've created multitudes of issues in other ways, and you have to solve it. Basically the plot of Flashpoint. If you know the comic Flashpoint, if you're going to see the Flash movie, which debatably you shouldn't, but that's a good example. But I want to hear what everyone else thinks. I think, like, what they're setting up here is very fascinating. They've created a lot of different seeds of what could become the next step in the story. I definitely want to see where we all think that's going to end up. And the big question I have is, could Phyrexia win? are we going to end with a victory for them, or are the good guys going to pull it through like always?